So as you all know, Steven Moffat is the head writer and showrunner of Doctor Who, and there will come a time where he will have to give up that position, and somebody else will have to take over. Like when Moffat took over, I guarantee that the next head writer will be someone who's already worked on the series previously. I'll be saying who I think could fill those shoes. Now, before I get started, I would like to address something. A lot of you are going to be saying, well, of course, Mark Gatiss is the obvious candidate. He's friends with Moffat. He's written for many episodes of Doctor Who before. He works with Moffat on Sherlock. He's definitely the guy that Moffat would consider to be the next showrunner. And whilst I do like Mark Gatiss as a writer, he's never written a script I dislike. I do dislike a lot of Victory of the Daleks, but it's got a solid first half, and episodes like The Unquiet Dead and Crimson Horror are episodes some of my favourite episodes. Some episodes I really like, but there's just something about Gatiss which I don't think he really has. He really has head writer material, and I think it's because he only really writes one type of episodes. Now, since we've only really seen him, he only really writes period pieces. Now, to be fair, he's only written period pieces for the series before, so we don't really know if he'd be any good, like, for instance, writing an episode set in the future. But aside from Night Terrors, all his previous episodes have been set in the past, and that seems to be the area, the style of Doctor Who episodes that he seems most comfortable writing in. And whilst, he's great at writing in that style, if he's head writer, not every episode that he writes can be a period piece. He's gonna have to have different genres, different settings, and it's evident that that's the style of writing that he feels most confident in. And I think Gatiss would rather carry on writing for Doctor Who, not as a head writer, but just as a writer, and would rather continue writing in that style rather than being taken out of his comfort zone. Also, aside from The Unquiet Dead and The Crimson Horror, which I mentioned previously, whilst I said, I like all of his scripts, there's not a script that he's written that I really dislike, I've never really been wowed by many other of his episodes other than The Unquiet Dead and Night Terrors. Whilst Moffat, when he was writing the series before he became head writer, he had written 6 scripts which were all brilliant, all were great, all were solid scripts, and he was like the obvious contender. But Gatiss, I just don't think so. I mean, his scripts for Sherlock, fantastic. He's the best writer on that series. The Great Game, best episode of Series 1. Hound of the Baskervilles, well, I love Series 2. I love Series 1. But Hound of the Baskervilles, another fantastic episode. But for Doctor Who, I don't know. He's also quite a busy man, he works for Sherlock, he makes documentaries about horror films. He's an actor, I think he's been in acting in Game of Thrones, so would he really take the time to become head writer of Doctor Who when he could just write one script a year and then go off and do other things? He's just not the man I could see doing the job. And as much as I would like to see Neil Gaiman being the head writer of Doctor Who, never gonna happen. Sorry, but it's never gonna happen. He barely has time to write, one episode for Doctor Who, so he's not gonna cut away from all his other projects, his own projects of his own creations, which he frankly gets a lot more money for to, be head writer for Doctor Who. So the guy I think who should be the next showrunner of Doctor Who is in fact Toby Whitehouse. Now, if you probably know, if you don't know who Toby Whitehouse is, he wrote the episodes School Reunion, which featured the return of Sarah Jane and K9, The Vampires of Venice, The God Complex, and A Town Called Mercy. He also was a creator and showrunner of Being Human, which ran for 5 series. And he's done a lot of other, smaller things, and I think that he is the perfect candidate for the next showrunner. not only do I think all of his episodes are great, I love Reunion. That's in my top. It's at least in my top 20 episodes. Very close to the top 10. Vampires of Venice is a great episode. Vampires of Venice is a great episode because it can both be. I've watched it recently, and it can both be a really kind of fun adventure whilst actually tackling some really dark themes at the same time. And that's something you want to see in a showrunner. You know, that's something that Moffat did before, really great, brilliantly, and that's something that Whitehouse does. The God Complex, again, really tackles the themes of faith, really intelligently, and I think that's also a really great, fun yet dark episode. And A Town Called Mercy. Whilst I think it somewhat deters in quality towards the end, I think that's also a great episode and probably the best episode of series 7 part 1. And you know, it's just a really great Western story. All the characters I like all the supporting characters in that. I like how the Doctor's written. He's got a really great grasp of writing the Doctor, and that's something that that showrunner really needs to have. Sorry. That's something that a showrunner really needs to be good at. He needs to be, you know, not just great at writing great stories, but he also needs to be able to write characters well. And whenever he wrote, for instance, you know, Amy and Rory, I always thought they were really well characterized in Whitehouse's episodes. He's good at writing great villains as well. I can't remember I can't remember the woman's name in Vampires of Venice. The main female villain, but I thought she was a great sympathetic villain. You know, yeah, she was trying to destroy Venice, but you could understand why. She was trying to save a species, and I thought she was written very well. And also, Carla Jack, I think it is, who's you know, the Doctor in A Town Called Mercy, who the gunslinger's hunting after. Well, I suppose you could say the gunslinger is supposed to be the villain in that episode, but he's also a really, you know, three-dimensional character in that episode. You know, he actually, in his argument with the Doctor, you know, his moral argument with the Doctor, you know, he presents his side, and you're like, well, yeah, he was fighting a war. He did save millions of lives, even though he destroyed thousands. And, you know, can you really hate him for that? So he's got a really, he can write villains really well, and I'd love to see him tackle, you know, somebody like the Master, or, you know, love to see him write the Daleks or something, because we've never seen him write a classic monster yet, but I would like to see him tackle a classic monster. And also, he's also had showrunning experience before. Like I said, Being Human, he knows how to, you know, be the head writer of a sci-fi program. And I think Being Human is great experience. It's great experience for Whitehouse, I think. And showing that series, I love Being Human. I still haven't seen the last 2 series of it, but the first 3 series I think are great. In that, you know, he writes, like I said, he writes really good villains. The villain Ferric, I think he's a great, really sinister. Much of that is in the performance, but a lot of that is also in Whitehouse's writing. And I think, you know, I think something like Being Human is a really great precursor for Doctor Who, for Whitehouse to tackle. But what do you think? Who do you think should be the showrunner after Doctor Who? Do you disagree with me and think, oh no, Gatiss will be perfect for the job, or do you have someone who I haven't thought of yet who think could be who you think could be a great next showrunner? Or do you think somebody who hasn't written for the show previously could make a great head writer? that would really intrigue me if you thought of someone who could actually fill that job without writing for the series beforehand. Please comment in the comment section below, and please subscribe, because I'm planning to make a lot more of these videos, of these types of videos, and I try to produce really great content on this channel. So it'd be really helpful if you could subscribe. This is Isaac's Movie Page, and thank you for listening.